In those days, I was the king's cupbearer. Early the following spring, the month of Nisan, during the 20th year of King Artaxerxes' reign, I was serving the king his wine. I had never before appeared sad in his presence. So the king asked me, "Why are you looking so sad? You don't look sick to me. You must be deeply troubled." Then I was terrified, but I replied, "Long live the king. How can I not be sad? For the city where my ancestors are buried is in ruins, and the gates have been destroyed by fire." The king asked, "Well, how can I help you?" With a prayer to God, to the God of heaven, I replied, "If it please the king, and if you are pleased with me, your servant, send me to Judah to rebuild the city where my ancestors are buried." The king, with the queen sitting beside him, asked, "How long will you be gone? When will you return?" After I told him how long I would be gone, the king agreed to my request. And I'm going to stop there. As you can see in this moment, Nehemiah is not in Jerusalem. He's not in Judah. He's not with his family. But when he hears the news about what's going on back home, he comes to the realization that, God, we have to do something about this. Our city's in ruins. Our people are broken. They have been in captivity. And the Bible says that he was the cupbearer. So he was the one that would drink, because you have to understand at those times they were always trying to assassinate the king. So he was the one that drink in case there was poison. And he would be the one that would take it all. And here's the thing about Nehemiah. Nehemiah wasn't just the cupbearer. His position was a position of authority. He would eat at the king's table. He was at a high position. But the Bible says that even in his high position, he came to the realization that he had to go and help rebuild what was broken. He had to go and do something. He wanted it. And if it took him leaving the comfort of the kingdom, that's what it was going to take for him to help rebuild what was broken. He wanted it. He wanted it really bad. And I wanted to share this passage because if me and you want to see things change in our city, in our family, we have to want it. And it starts, the Bible says that he wept. He wept. See, because you cannot change what you don't have a burden for. When you don't have the burden for it, it will never change. It is when God puts a burden on the inside of you that the change happens. You have to ask you the question, when was the last time you actually cried for something that was outside of your own problem? When was the last time you actually cared about something that broke you? I'm not talking about, and maybe that's for you, but in the arms of the angel with the dogs and they're like sad and hurt, that could be it. But what I am saying is, what is it in your life? Because we all desire good things for our family. We all desire a good life. But if you don't have a burden for it, you cannot change it. And you have to ask yourself the question, you have to define, what is it for you? What is it? What is the thing that is burdening your heart? Is it a city? Is it family members? Is it the poor and the addicted outside? Is it the students in your school? What burdens you? What is it? When people ask, man, how do you know what God is like pushing you towards? I always tell people this. You know it's God because every time the subject comes up, there's something in your spirit that leaps. And you can't shake it. It leaps. That's how you know it's God. That's how you know, okay, God, maybe I need to do something about this. Maybe we need to invest in this. Maybe we need to give towards this. Maybe you're not called to build wells in Africa, but you can invest in them. But what is it that burdens you? Is it the people that you surround yourself with and you're there with them all the time and it burdens you on the inside because you're like, man, God, if we don't do something about it, they're going to be lost forever. The Bible says that he wept, church. He cried for his city. He was far away in another land. And that was the first reaction that he had. That, man, God, why is this happening to our people? And I'm sure he felt it because he was living a good life. He was eating good food. His job was dangerous because the moment you drink poison, we know what happens. It was a dangerous job, but he had all the things that we desire. But he realized that wasn't the thing that was going to change anything. And so after today, I want you to start, I want to challenge you to define your it, to define what it is, to define what is it that God is burdening you for. Is it for the addicted out there? And you got to find an organization to help? Is it the people in prison out there? In Kingdom Man, we have two guys that every Sunday they go and minister at the juvenile village, the juvenile center. Every Sunday they go and they minister there because they have a burden for students. There are guys in that place that are living hopeless. There's guys, they were telling me there's a guy that's like 17 years old. He already has kids. And he's of age now, and now he has to go to court to see whether he has to go to the actual big boy prison. And we don't think about those things because sometimes what happens is we get caught up with our own life, our own things. But God put it in their spirit. So every Sunday they go and they minister over there. And they invite them to church. They offer them salvation, and kids are getting saved in their church. You should clap your hands about that. If you're a woman, they need more women to minister to the girls there. There's not that many. But you have to define your it. You have to recognize that there's God puts things on the inside of you, not so that you can wish and hope something can change. No, but that you could have the ability to say, okay, what can I do to help change that? Like I said, maybe God's not calling you to get into the middle of that, but you can support with your money. You can find other people to be a part of it. Or you could be the one that goes. Whatever the case is, whatever it is, whether it's here in Laredo, or God calls you somewhere else and puts a burden on the inside of you, makes it leap. And when people ask you, why are you doing this? Because God told me. Why? Because God told me. But you have to define it, and you have to have a burden. You have to realize, some of us in this room, we have to realize, God, break my heart again. Not break my heart in a bad way, like where I feel sorry for myself. No, break my heart again for the people that are around me. Maybe your first step is reaching that neighborhood that you live in. God, use me to the nations. Okay, use your street and tell people. Whatever it is, church, let there be a burden on the inside. And the second thing he does, he doesn't just weep. The Bible says that he begins to pray and he begins to fast. He weeps, he gets the burden on the inside, the desire, and then he begins to pray about it. He doesn't act aimlessly and out of impulse. He goes to God first. So many people want to skip God to go do what they need to do, and they end up falling very hard. And he goes to the Lord first, and he begins to pray to God. He begins to say, and we saw the whole thing here. There's like paragraphs of his prayer to God. And he begins to pray, church. to God, to God in God's person, God's purity, and God's promises based on those three things. If you see it, he's praying based on God's person, he's praying on God's purity, based on God's purity and God's promises. On God's person, he's recognizing who God is. Because when God shifts something in your life, when God puts you in a place and you get the burden, there's going to be moments where the enemy is going to distract you and discourage you to make you feel like you're not enough for it. But when you can learn to recognize who God is, everything's possible. When God was calling Moses to set the people free in Egypt, and Moses got scared in the moment, God said, tell them the I am sent you. Let them know that the I am is going forward. Let the people know I'm the one that's sending you.